In this video, we'll cover logging into MyStation for the first time, as well as setting up the basic information required to set up your station. In order to set up your MyStation account, we'll need your name, your station name, and your email address. You'll then receive an email which outlines how to log on to MyStation, along with a username and a temporary password. To log on to MyStation, click on the hyperlink included in the email. The first run login for MyStation will load automatically in your default browser. You'll see the username and the invite token have already been added to the login box, so all you need to do is click on the Accept Invitation button. Next, replace the temporary password with a memorable password that you can use for logging into MyStation. Finally, select the station you wish to edit. If you only have one station on MyStation, you will only see one icon. But if you are managing multiple stations, you'll be able to choose the station you wish to edit from this screen. Welcome to MyStation. On the left-hand side, we have the main navigation. You can choose between Dashboard, Content, which includes content such as calendar, assignments, shows, and presenters. Settings, which is where you set your player settings, your streams, your user, and your Playout integration. And Account, which allows you to change your password or log out. If you're operating multiple stations, you can also click on the MyStation icon and choose the station you wish to edit. If this is the first time that you've configured MyStation, the welcome screen will have lots of options for configuring the basic information you need for your system. As you can see on the example here, we've already set up some of the information. On a new system, the ticks won't be done and there'll be a link to each section. But let's show you how we set those. First thing we want to set is the station identity settings, such as the name and the logo. To do that, go into Station Settings and then Station. Here, you can type in the station name, the short name, the tagline, and the time zone. You can also upload a new logo by clicking on the Set Logo Image button, or Set App Icon Image if you want to add an icon to your system. To change the image, click on Set Image, and you can now drag an image from anywhere on your system to the drop here, or just choose a different image. You can also set the main color scheme for your MyStation by selecting the drop downs for text, background, or highlight color. Next, let's set the social media settings for MyStation. Click on the social option under the station settings. You can now type in your Facebook page, your Twitter username, your Instagram username, your contact emails, and your Mixcloud username. Once you've done, click on Save. Now let's take a look at the player options. Click on the player option under Station Settings. If you haven't saved your previous settings, you will always be prompted. Here we can see the player. This is the player that can be embedded on your website or will be displayed on the MyStation front page or website. First thing you'll notice is you can set an alternative logo. If you don't set the logo, your station logo will be used. Just as before, click on the Use Alternate Logo and select the image you want by either dragging into the box here or selecting an image you wish to use. You can also set the default background image, which is the image that appears blurred out behind the player. Once you have no playing information being fed to your player, if MyStation is able to identify album art, a blurred version of the album art will actually appear behind the player. If no album art is available, this background will be displayed. This section here shows you a preview of the player. As you change the options, you'll see the preview will change in real time. There's also a button up here for accessing the streams, but these will be covered later in the video. The first thing you need to do is choose the style or layout of your player. You have four options. Tabbed, where the options are displayed in a tab along the bottom of the player. Full page, where all the options are actually scrollable on the player. Player only, where only the play button, the now playing information, and the logo are displayed. And finally, the expanding player, where the player starts off small, but when you click on it, it expands to fill the entire page. Let's go back to the tabbed layout. Next, we can set the color schemes. As before, you can set the background and highlight color for both the player and the menu. You can opt whether or not to show album art. If you don't show the album art, then the station logo is displayed. Similarly, you can choose whether or not to display now playing information. So if you're not using Myriad or your Playout system doesn't provide the information in the correct format, you could turn this feature off. You can set the text color and background color for the now playing information as well. You can opt whether or not to show the last X many songs played. If I go onto the recent tab here, you'll see here are a list of the songs played in the last while. You can also choose how many of the songs to be played using the option. The player can also include a contact button, which can be used to send emails to the station based on the station information entered earlier. You can toggle the contact on and off using the option. If you set up a Mixcloud username as part of your station setup, you can also toggle on or off whether or not to display catch-up information via Mixcloud. When a user clicks on this option, it will list the most recent things you've uploaded to Mixcloud. You can also opt whether or not to display your schedule. If you turn this option off, you can see on the tabbed version, the display schedule button turns on and off. If we switch to the full page version, we can see that the schedule is displayed here and where we can choose whether to have a day, 7 days, or just now and next. Finally, some players allow you to enable autoplay mode. This does not always work in modern browsers, as many browsers now stop autoplaying for security purposes, but you can turn it on if you wish, and some users will be able to enjoy autoplaying if they've already visited your site before or if their settings allow it. When you're happy with your player setup, click on the Save button. This player configuration will be what will be displayed by default by MyStation. If you want to embed your web player onto a third-party website or multiple websites, you can use the Embed section to get the code you need to add to your website. The first thing you need to do is choose a widget size. There are multiple options depending on what you've selected for your main tab layout. So currently we're on the tab layout, so we can either choose Portrait, Large Square, Fluid, which will change depending on the size of the container, but Mini is disabled because Mini is not available on a tabbed player. If I choose Player Only, however, we can see that all 4 options are available, so we can choose to have a very small player for Mini. Once you've got the configuration you want, so let's put it back to the tab player and say we want to go to a portrait player, just click in the code box here to copy the code. This is the code you need to add to your website. As you can see, it's an iframe code, which means it's a self-contained section of code that can be embedded in the vast majority of third-party websites. All you need to do is paste this code into an HTML or code widget on your website. As you can see, when you change the widget size, the code changes ever so slightly. If you don't want to embed the player, but instead you want to have a button or some other mechanism for actually launching a free-floating or separate tab player, you can use the link section. There are 3 options: pop-up, new tab, or get link. In pop-up mode, if we click in here, we can copy the code, and if we paste this into our third-party website, it will create a button that launches a separate floating player. There's an example here. Okay. If you choose new tab, it's very similar, but instead of it being a pop-up player, When you click on it, it opens a new tab. Finally, you can choose Get Link, where you get the hyperlink for that particular code. This will open a default player for your MyStation. And because this is a standard hyperlink, it can be attached to any element on a website that allows links, such as buttons, graphics, etc. If you're happy, click on the Save button. Sometimes you want to have multiple different players on different sites. The top section is for setting the default player, which will be the default player used whenever MyStation is asked to display a player. However, you can also create customizable players with unique code that can be embedded in whenever you need. So let's say we had a requirement where we wanted to create a mini player for one website. We could go to player only, say mini, and then paste this code onto one website. And let's say there was a different website where we wanted to have a expanding player. Well, we would change to be an expanding player, and we maybe make it fluid player, and then we can click in there again. So by using the custom player option, you can create many different versions of the player, and each one is uniquely referenced via the code here. So you don't save these ones, it just generates the code. And when we embed this code onto a website, this is the player you'll get. So if I change this one to be a full page player, square, you can see the code is changed. So if I pasted this code on the website, this is the player we would get. Next, let's look at how we set up the streams in MyStation so that your player can actually play your web streams. To do this, you can either click on the Streams button at the top of the player page, or click on the Streams option under the station settings. Here we can see I've got two streams set up for my player. The first one is an HTTP stream, the second one is an HTTPS stream. This would usually be the wrong way around because nowadays we want most of the streams to be HTTPS. So we can simply pick up the HTTPS one and drop it at the top of the list. Now the player will try this stream first, and if it's not available, we'll play this stream. Let's say we want to add a new stream. Click on the Add button, and here you can choose the type of stream, either Icecast or Showcast. Anyone who's streaming with broadcast radio needs to pick Icecast. Then give it a station name, whatever you like, and finally the address of your servers. So for most cases, for broadcast radio streaming servers, it'll be streaming.broadcastradio.com : and then the unique port number for your stream, or possibly streamingr.broadcastradio.com plus your port number if you're on our resilient server package. And then finally, you type in the mount name, which is the unique name for your station. All of this information, the server address and the port and the mount point, will be provided on your streaming contact details if you are streaming through our platform, or if you're streaming through a third-party supplier, they will also be able to give you this information. Next, we'll look at the users section, which allows you to add and manage users so that other people can access your MyStation system. Click on the Users option under the Settings menu. Here you can see a list of existing users, as well as their contact details and their roles. If you want to change someone's role, you can click on their three dots, and then you can edit their name, their email address, and also their position within the system. If you want to add a new user, click on the Add button, give them a name, email address, give them a role. Usually you choose the option to send a password by email. That way they'll be sent an email much the same as the one we looked at the beginning of this video, where they'll have a random password to start with and can set their own password. Alternatively, you can choose to provide a password for them. Finally, in the settings section, we need to look at Playout integration. This is the section that allows you to integrate your Playout system with MyStation so that now playing information can be fed from your studio to your player to update things like the now playing text information as well as the album art. If you're using Myriad 5 combined with OCP5 or the BR encoder, then Playout integration is as simple as copying the API key at the top section. This API key is then pasted into either OCP5 or BR encoder in the appropriate section, and that provides all of the link that is needed between OCP5 and or BR encoder, and MyStation. If, however, you're using a third-party Playout system, or you're using Myriad 4 or OCP SE or OCP4, then instead you need to pick either Myriad OCP4 SE or other generic from the option in the second section. If you're using OCP4, for example, choose that. And you've got some instructions here on how to set up OCP4. So you would need to add an HTTP GET output to OCP with the server set to api.broadcast.radio, port 443. Server type should be HTTPS. Request type should be POST. And here is the URL. And if you copy and paste this section here into the format creator section in OCP, then the information coming from OCP will be correct for MyStation. If you're using a generic third or other third-party system, essentially this is the URL you need to send to MyStation. So, and there is the additional information that you need to append to the end. You'll have to consult your Playout system manufacturer on exactly how you would do that. Now that we've finished with the settings, let's take a look at the content section and see how to set up shows, presenters, and your schedule. Click on the Content Navigation option, and here you can see under Schedule we have Calendar, Assignments, Presenters, and Shows. Site layout and more information will be covered in later videos. So let's explain what we mean by these terms. The calendar is a continuous calendar of outputs. You can see here I'm looking at Sunday the 29th of November. But if I go forward a couple of weeks, we can actually see what's going to be scheduled for several weeks or several months ahead. The assignments, however, allow us to have standard week-long assignments. So this is the different shows we have within any given week. Now, assignments can either be default, in which case default will be used by default by MyStation, or you can have time-specific ones, like this assignment here that will run from the 13th of December to the 26th of December. Presenters allow you to add different presenters who are going to be the presenters on your station, and shows obviously allows you to have different shows within your station as well. So let's start with adding a presenter. Click on the presenters, click on Add Presenter, and here we can see we've got content and categories. So let's start with content. Show preview. Let's put a picture of the presenter here. Give him a title. And give a little bit of information about Mark. You can also choose to categorize it if you wish. We'll just leave it unclassified, I think. Click on the Publish button. And now if we look in presenters, we can see Mark K is down as a presenter. But of course, we need to also add a show for Mark. So let's click on the Shows button. Here we can see the shows we already have in place. But if we click on New Show, very similar situation. We can then go ahead and we're going to put the same picture for the show. Call this one Show Name. Give it a title and also give it a description. And then we need to assign a presenter to it. So let's assign Mark to this. We can also assign more than one presenter if we wish to. if we finish with the show, we can now hit publish. So now we've added Mark as a presenter, and we've also added a show called Mark's Big Friday. But we still need to assign that show to an hour in a week to be included in our schedule. Now, there are two ways we could do this. If Mark is only going to do a show this Friday, then we could go to the calendar and we could say, Friday the 27th of November, I do not want to use the default show. I want to put in a different show for 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm going to have Mark do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click in here, and it'll say, do you want to override the default for the day and copy the schedule template in so that the rest of the day remains the same? So I'm going to say yes. So we can see now that it's made a copy of the default schedule, but left a gap for our new show to be inserted. We can now put in the start and end date, so start at 1900 and finish at 28:59, and we want to choose Mark's Big Friday. Save. Oh, I've got some overlapping times there, so let's remove that one. Let's say we want to put the show here instead. So from 5 till 8 is Mark's Big Friday. And there we can see that show has been added to our calendar. So come Friday, the player will display a picture of Mark and the name of Mark in the schedule section. You can see the rest of the week is currently running in the default. So how did we set that up? Well, that was done with assignments. So let's click on assignments. Let's have a look at this standard one here. Okay, drop this down and click on edit. So here we can see this is our standard default assignment. So if we wanted to add Mark's show every Friday, we could do that in here. So I'm going to instead change this Heavenly Music Mix to start at 8 o'clock. And now add in Mark's show. Save. So because this was the default assignment grid, if I go back to the calendar now and go to the following week, we can see that Mark's Big Friday is now added in following week. And in fact, every week up until December the 14th. The reason for that is if we go back to assignments, our Christmas schedule is set to run from the 13th of December to the 26th of December. Click on edit, we can set the title and the description, the title and the start date and the end date. So let's say we wanted to add another one that took over on the 26th and ran through to the 1st of January. Go back to assignments, click on add, say I want to call this one New Year. This one wants to run from the 27th to the 1st. Click on add. So now we have that, and it's going to run from the 27th to the 1st. But of course, we haven't actually assigned any programming to this. So we can very simply go, okay, I want to create an entire day there, and that's going to be non-stop polka. And I'm actually going to extend that to be the entire week. So now we can see, for some reason, we're going to play non-stop polka music from Monday, the 27th, or from the 27th anyway, throughout the entire period there we'll be running non-stop polka. So if I go back to my calendar now and have a look at these, I can scroll along. We can see here 14th, scroll along, so after the 26th, 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st, all non-stop polka. And taking over from the 1st of January, we go back to our default schedule. So the schedule section of MyStation allows you to manage the content, both in terms of presenters and shows that are coming up on your station. And these will be displayed in your web player, your mobile app, and on your MyStation website. Before we leave content, let's have a quick look under the More menu. Here you can see you've got lots of different options for managing all the pages on your site, the images on your site, shows, presenters, and your players, or in fact, everything on your site. The last thing we'll look at is your account settings, which allow you to reset your password or log on and off. Click on the account option on the navigation menu, and you can either choose to change your password or log out from the system. As we also stated before, if you're managing more than one station in your MyStation system, you can choose which station you're editing at any time by either clicking on the icon and choosing the correct station, or you can use the drop-down list at the top here. Thank you for choosing MyStation. If you need any more information, please contact support@broadcastradio.com or visit www.broadcastradio.com.